From the world of AV programming and control with James King, I'm Steve Greenblatt, and this is Ask the Programmer. Hey, James, it's good to be with you, and we're actually only a couple of feet apart, so
Yeah,
even better.
so it's great. I mean, first day of the show floor at Infocom, and this is happening. It's happening. The HETMA booth is going great, so shout out to HETMA for allowing us to record our episode here.
Absolutely. So for those who may be listening to this sometime in the future, it's Infocom 23, it's day one. We're in the HETMA booth, which is a new exhibitor here at Infocom, and we're actually joined with a special guest, somebody who I've gotten to know over the years, who James has been working with on both podcasts and through HETMA. It's Tim Van Woeart from Rutgers. Welcome, Tim.
Well, I'm glad to be here, and you guys have been doing such a great job with your show over the years, and I'm thrilled to be here because I will throw out I'm throwing out my own disclaimer right now. I am not a programmer, so I know I'm thrilled to even be considered to be here with you guys today. So, and yes, we are having a wonderful first day here at Infocom, and it's exciting.
Yeah.
So the reason why we wanted to have you here is because programming isn't just about writing code and isn't just about the programmers, but also the people who support programmers, the people who interact with programmers, the people who value programmers, and I think that you're one of them, and from conversations that we've had before. And one of the things that James brought up, and he said we really need to get you on this show, is Rutgers is doing things a little bit different when it comes to control. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so this goes back, our story goes back to 2012, and so we had from the presidential level was the podium project, essentially, is what they called it. And the concept was to have a standardized podium in all the general purpose classrooms. It was decided that the Mac Mini would be essentially the control system and a source inside the podium, and that we would speak directly to each of the devices that we were controlling. So we would use the RS-232 commands and talk directly to the HDMI switch, and then talk to the projector and turn it on, turn it off, like basic things like that. And as we've grown over the years, we wanted that standard look and feel. So the controller is always the same no matter what classroom you go to. It's the same. It sounds boring, but it's a gray box on a black. It's a red wallpaper with a gray. It's a gray controller, but the buttons are the same. The font is the same. So no matter where you go, it looks the same. Maybe you don't have as many inputs or outputs because we use the same controller in our active learning spaces as we do in a standard little podium that just has a couple inputs and outputs. So we wanted that design to be the same. And it was tasked with our application developer, Jake Nelson, who is still very much involved in the project and has developed this project even further, to make it more and more, the user-friendly aspect was fine. It was the back end that we were trying to make more accessible to us engineers that were just, we would run out to a classroom, install a new system, and then we'd have to reach out to Jake and be like, okay, here's we need this type of controller here. He has been able to now, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, we can talk a little bit more about it, but now we're at the point where customization is a little bit easier. So we've come a long way from the starts of just a Python program to now a little more elaborate on the back end. So, we rely a lot on our application developer, Jake, and we work in concert with him with what we are designing. It's very much as like any other engineering design would happen. It's like, here's the equipment we're doing, here's the things we want it to do, and then he also comes back and says, yeah, no, that's not going to work. So he's almost like our quality check in a way too. It's like, yeah, no, that won't work. It's like, we'll have to do this. It's like, okay, well, if that's what we have to do, then. So it's a good relationship that we have with him on that, and he's very knowledgeable and a great asset to us.
So, James, you and I talk about this a lot. Is how do we bring more of a voice of a programmer to the table? And it sounds like Tim's doing that.
Yeah, he definitely is. That's great there, and it's amazing how you guys are using one being Rutgers, being a big institution, using something that's not off the shelf.
No, it's not, and that was one of our goals. And there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with the Trons of this world. You know, we everybody they have their place. Um, it was something that we wanted to accomplish, and we can still do that. We can still talk to the Trons that are out there. We've had integrators come in and they do their installations, they do their programming, and then we call presets. Essentially, is what they set up the presets in advance, and then we just call those presets. So we'll speak to a CP4 and tell it what we want it to do, but it's already been, a lot of the work's already been done on the back end. So we play nice with others as well. So, but yeah, it was one of those things. It's like if our control processor is just a Mac Mini with a USB to RS-232 hub built in, and now we're doing everything over. We do a lot of things over IP, so we don't even need that RS-232 connection. We're actually trying to eliminate that entirely and find that next generation of devices that allows us to just have IP control.
So, what made your team go this route, knowing that okay, there's all that Trons out there, there's all the other products out there? What made you go to the Mac Mini in a custom-built system?
So that predates me, I will say. But from my understanding is that by having it done in-house and by us having basically full control and having that flexibility of not having to work in a specific environment, we can have that flexibility that we want. That we can, and you have now the latest generation of Mac Mini is $500. It's like, and I'm not going to say it. I'm going to save my supply chain jokes for another time. But we all know that there's availability of Mac Minis right now, and I can get USB to RS-232 hubs without any problem either. So.
Well, that's one thing great about software is we don't have to worry about supply chain, and being able to go on any kind of device, we can get whatever's off the shelf.
Right. So, and I will say that we've now moved into so it was a custom controller per Mac Mini that we were essentially doing. Jake has now developed it to the point where there's a full back end that and that's actually, this is happening this summer as we're speaking. We are working on having it with a back end that the help desk can access without actually having a web interface. So similarly to like a Crestron,
Fusion?
Fusion. Like a Fusion, sorry.
XIO probably.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, XIO.
So it's similar to that, where you can pull up a website and you have the controller there, so you can still do that. And also, it wouldn't interrupt what's happening in the classroom, because we've definitely had instances where we'll set up for an event, and then we are limited by what's happening on the podium. So if somebody wanted to sit out in the audience and have control over the system, they would have to remote into the Mac Mini, but then that would change what's happening in real time. This new next-gen controller will have that almost like an overlay. So you won't see what's happening, but those control commands will still happen on the back end. And somebody could be outside in the audience making the changes as needed. And actually, it works great from an ADA perspective as well, because we have instructors who are in wheelchairs and have limited mobility and things like that. So they can have their tablet with a stylus or whatever works for them, and they can control it without actually having to log into the podium. So there's a lot of advantages to that design that we're looking forward to leveraging going forward. So.
And how much time and cost savings would you say that you have? And I'm not saying to give me numbers, but is this something that you've reduced maybe by 50%? Do you think it's more than that?
I mean, I would say, yeah, there's probably like a 50% cost savings here, because You're talking like $500 for a Mac Mini. You're talking maybe $30 to $40 for a USB to RS-232 hub, and and Jake's time is very valuable.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to factor his part in because he's also doing other projects for other parts of our division. So it's a little bit of give and take on that. But when you factor that all in, because either way you're going to need a programmer. So whether that programmer is Crestron certified, Extron certified, BIAMP certified, whatever it might be, you know.
What's so? My question is, we all know, like, if you look at any of the manufactured programming out there now, is as a programmer, you run into a issue, you run into a hiccup, you have a community, you have a tech support, you have people you reach out to. So now that you guys are doing all in-house, all on Jake, how does that work? Is Jake your sole source? Or, like, when you run into trouble, how is that done?
So Jake is usually the one that we go to. So there is that limitation of that if there's something wrong with the controller, he's the one I have to reach out to for that. I know he does a lot of good research on his end when it comes to, okay, this command's not working and things like that. And, so he'll tweak it as we go along. We do try to do as much pre-testing as we can before we roll out a new system. A lot of the hardware we use is because it's gone through the ringer, essentially. We're not putting it out into a classroom unless that controller works. He is also very good at finding those answers. He's a very valuable asset in that respect. What I will say, one of the challenges we do face when it comes to the individual devices is that not all manufacturers release all of the APIs. So because there are some manufacturers, some of which are not too far from where we are sitting right here, that have super secret APIs, and it's like you have to call the help desk, and then the help desk has to reach out to like a sales rep or something like that, or some upper level engineer. They go, oh yeah, here's the documentation you need, and it's like, well, like it shouldn't be that difficult. Like
We refer to that as walled gardens.
Yes. So.
Are you finding also, because I think that you bring up a good point, and that is one of the, what I would look at as one of the uphill battles, but are you finding, though, that you're saving time because you're writing this code once and using it so many times, or are you still doing a lot of one-off?
No, so Jake has also gotten to the point where his controller does a lot of just general things. Like if, for instance, when we need to, he's built in things for us as engineers as well. So if I need to set EDIDs and stuff like that, he already has it built into the controller, and he has it set into the controller in a way where it just says set EDID on a drop menu, and it knows what device is in there. So it's becoming smarter as we've gone along, which has enabled us to do our job so much better.
That's wonderful.
So it's like it's funny, every like 3 months or so, like he'll be like, yeah, I came up with this new thing I put in the controller, right? It's like that's amazing, like, because he listens to what we do on a daily basis, and we have our daily reports that we send out, like, for what the things we've accomplished for the day, and we have our tickets and things like that too. So he's very well in tune with what we are doing on a daily basis. He's involved in the team just like we'd want him to be.
That sounds very solution oriented.
Yes, we have. As a team, we are always out to find out what that next. Like, if there's a problem, we'll solve it. If there's something else we need to do, then we make those changes. So
That's great. Now, because of most of our audience, I believe Steve and I believe are programmers,
Yep.
and this is not a traditional path that Jake has taken, but we also know that Jake can only be around so long.
right.
So what is Jake and Rutgers doing to prepare that next programmer to come in and help out?
So I know he's been keeping very good documentation on the things that he's been working on. I think that's part of since we started in Python, and now I'll be admitted I don't know what he's doing for this next gen controller, but I know he's not doing anything that any knowledgeable programmer would probably not be able to figure out. And so he is doing a very good job of that, because yes, we are very well aware that at any point, because I know he's gotten his MBA, like he's gearing up. I know it's going to happen soon, and he's gonna leave. He's also having a kid, so it's like there's a lot of things that has happened for him in the last year. So I think that momentum is moving towards. We're going to need to figure out what that next thing is going to be.
But I also think that it's good to look at for the programming community that there are organizations out there using Python, using modern programming language that are not the standard AV. That they're out in the wild, they're out in the forest, and so we need to get the programs involved with that more. So
Right.
It's good that Jake has that, and it's good that he's documenting it, and hopefully the next generation can pick up and expand on it.
Yeah, most definitely. So
From a management standpoint, or the decision makers, can they really see the value of programming?
yeah, so they see it. I will, so a little bit of structure for where we are in my department. So we really don't report into OIT. We don't report into any IT structure or anything like that. We actually report into the chancellor. So we are specifically down in New Brunswick, and there's us, then there's my boss, and then there's the vice chancellor that he reports it, and the vice chancellor goes up to the chancellor. The vice chancellor is for technology and classroom innovation. So like he is very much in tune with what we're trying to do. So we have the support going
That's
up
really
the structure.
important.
Yeah. So and Jake, part of also his responsibilities, he helps out with the other departments within the vice chancellors, which is he also oversees scheduling and things like that too. So he helps them out with running things from their end. So so there's value in what Jake does, and it is recognized. So
That's great. That's great.
Before we wrap up, talk a little bit. I know that you also are the host of the AV Life, and James is a cast member. So talk a little bit about your show and what might appeal to our audience.
So I will say, I think the best way of explaining what we do is like a morning show, essentially. I'm the host of the AV Life podcast. You can find us on Twitter at the AV Life Pod, and you can also find us on theavlife.com as well, which leads you to higheredav.com, which James also has articles, as you all probably are all aware. But yeah, James and I have been doing this. So it just passed. I've been the host for 3 years now. And I took over from a gentleman by the name of Corey Moss, a very well-respected gentleman here in the AV community who is still sadly recovering from a stroke. So we're kind of a morning show, and we talk about things related to AV, whether it's programming, security, trade shows, things that HETMA is doing, which we're like we said, we're at the HETMA booth here. And we have a lot of fun, and we get derailed all the time. And it's, I was talking to Britt Yenser on her podcast just before this, and it feeds my ADHD brain, because like we can go off on different tangents, and they go along for my ride all the time, which is great. It's
Except for when Joe Way takes over.
But then he has his own ADHD thing that he does, which I don't know if he does, but I wouldn't be surprised if he did. So. We all go along on the trip, and there's always value, but it's always a good time.
It sounds very community-based, which is
Yes.
what we're about here as programmers, which is what HETMA is about. So it very much is a lot of commonalities there.
Yes, definitely.
Well, we appreciate you being part of our show today. Anything that you wanted to add that we haven't touched on with regard to what you see as being important to our programming audience?
Yeah, I was gonna say, for your programming audience out there, like if you're programming for specific hardware and things like that, and you don't see the value in what your engineers are coming up to, don't be afraid to question them. Like it's we make mistakes, we see things going one way, and then you can be the realist, because I see it in certain programmers that they have a very logical mind when it comes to things. You know, you see things a certain way, and you know, us engineers tend to be a little bit more on the dreamer side of things. So don't be afraid to be that grounding force to say, hey, let's just keep it simple. Let's do this, and you know. But yeah, I think that would be my piece of advice to your listening audience.
I like that. I like that. How can people get in touch with you, learn more about what you're up to, learn more about what you do at Rutgers,
So
and
if you
so
want
forth?
to, yeah, I was gonna say, if you want to find out more information about Rutgers and the classroom controller, you can find us at DCS, so Digital Classroom Services .rutgers.edu. That'll take you to our website. Everything is there. We don't hide anything. I mean, we don't have the actual code up there, but you can find out more about the controller project, the classroom project, and the different pieces of hardware and things like that that we put out there. If you want to find me on the Twitter, on the Twitter. Wow, I just aged myself like 30 years there. It's at T Van Woeart, so at TVANWOEART, so like Woeart. And I'm out there all the time, and LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram, and same thing with the AV Life. We're all out there. So, and you can find us all at higheredav.com. So.
Perfect. James, any final words, and how can people get in touch with you?
Final words is, one, I want to thank Tim for being on our show, talking about this. It's great. It shows that us programmers can actually get out of the gray boxes and, you know, get past those walled gardens. The light's out there, and we just got to get our feet out there and actually push it. Also is, again, I want to thank HETMA for allowing us to record here at this booth. It's hopping. I don't know if you guys can hear all the noise that's going on, but it's happening, and you have to say this is the first ever end user group on the show floor. I'm hoping in a couple more years, programmers will have a booth on the floor.
I like that.
There you go. I like the sound of that.
And how can people get in touch with you and learn more what you're up to?
You can Google me, find me. I'm HETMA, AV Live, here, Higher Ed AV. Again, you Google me, you'll find me.
Awesome. Well, I concur with what you're saying, and thank you, Tim, for sharing your story and Rutgers' story, because I think it's important for people to understand the possibilities. A lot of times we get really locked in only doing things a certain way, and I applaud everybody for taking the chance, because it is risky to do what you're doing, but the risk can lead to a big reward. So glad to hear that.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm glad. Like I said, I'm humbled that you guys brought me on. So thank you for the opportunity.
We appreciate it, and we'll have you back again in the future.
That'd be great.
For me, you can reach me at Steve Greenblatt on social media, my company Control Concepts at controlconcepts.net, and most importantly, you can find Ask the Programmer on YouTube as well as Apple and Google Podcasts, and we'd love to hear more from you, have more guests on, and be able to cover more of the topics that our audience is looking for, so please reach out and let us know, because that's most important. James and I are on Twitter. We also are big fans of AV in the AM, so that's some of the places that you could reach us virtually, and if you happen to see us, please reach out and say hi. And with that, this has been Ask the Programmer.